Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at TLRY brands. It is time for another update, and on this chart we are still tracking this all-time downtrend that has formed within this area, an ABC structure that could easily be considered complete. We wouldn't need any additional lows. We would have pushed almost perfectly into the 100% extension of the wave A, and we did surpass it slightly here. We did push a little below the 100% extension, but honestly that is perfectly fine. That is just an ideal target. And then we could start looking in that case for a larger uptrend to start forming within this area. Now, in such a scenario, I would most likely consider this structure to the upside as a potential 5-wave move, and we would have here a wave 1 up, a wave 2 down, a third wave up. Although this is where it already comes into a bit of trouble, because within this push into a third wave to the upside, we didn't actually get here to the ideal target, which is the 138.2% extension of the wave 1. In fact, we didn't even get to the 123.6% extension of the wave 1, which is the target below the ideal target. And that is actually a bit of a warning sign. It does suggest that this pattern could easily be tracked as some sort of different pattern, something like even an ABC movement that could be considered within this structure. But honestly, there is really nothing else, no other area of support that we can track anyway for a potential push into higher prices. Now, with that said, we are looking with somewhat decent probabilities for a reversal from this area into at least a wave C, if not a third wave to the upside, since into this area of support we have only formed a 3-wave structure to the downside, yeah. And not only that, we have pushed so far perfectly into the 61.8% retracement, from which point we have started a quite significant uptrend that has even followed through since the previous video and what we were expecting, what we were tracking within it. And honestly, as long as we hold here the area of support for the wave 2, the $5.2 level being the last level of support at the 78.6% retracement, there is realistically no significant reason to continue looking for a more bearish interpretation, yeah? If we were to build something like a 5-wave move to the downside within this area, sure, it would have been the case, it would have been quite bearish. I would have looked with high probabilities for a correction in 3 waves and then continuation to the downside in another, or at least another 5-wave move. But since we managed to break out of the resistance area, we are no longer looking for a 5-wave move to be developing internally, and we are tracking here a potential 5-wave move to the upside that could actually be forming in a couple of patterns. So we still have here a resistance area that we are tracking. Now this is a bit more generic, although it does seem to prove quite lucrative to be tracking it, because yeah, we have pushed since the previous video perfectly here into the 61.8% retracement, and then that is where we have gotten rejected, and we have formed another significant top within another wave to the upside. Now again, we also have some structural resistance levels to be watching out, especially here around the let's say between the $15.2, yeah, just around the $15.2 level, and then a bit more at the 78.6% retracement, also having some structural resistance, but also the Fibonacci retracement being a resistance itself. Now with that said, while watching these levels, we expect to form retracements or some sort of corrections when we get towards them or into them, and as we push into those, we can now track a possible extension within the pattern that we have been tracking internally. So here we have a couple of paths we could still take to build this larger 5-wave move to the upside, where internally I would like to be tracking this as a potential 1-2 setup in the blue scenario, and then this would be a third wave up, which honestly, in both scenarios right now, I probably prefer that this third wave would be considered extended, yeah? In the blue scenario to have the third wave top here, and in the white scenario to actually allow an extension within this wave 3. I believe it is possible, I believe it could work out quite nicely, although yeah, that is mostly here due to this small 1-2 setup that did occur within this area, although once again it is not needed. This could have been the correct count, or this could still be the correct count to track a larger 1, 2, 3 within the white scenario, and then we would be tracking here a wave 4 correction and then a 5th wave to the upside. We will be checking out the relevant areas of support for all of these interpretations, and we will be keeping the most relevant here. Now, in the previous video, we had these areas of support, and it seems we have already gotten within the correction into both of them. And we actually covered the stock the day before we formed the actual bottom within this area. And for the white interpretation, we pushed here perfectly into the 38.2% retracement. So yeah, honestly, it is probably best to not overthink it and just do something like 1-2 setup and the third wave up for the white interpretation. And in that case, we can even remove the internal count and track this movement alone within the white scenario, where I would be looking for an updated area of support for this retracement at the levels between around the $12.7 all the way down to the $10.7 level. Now, in that case, as long as we hold here the 50% retracement, we can actually still continue to track a potential impulse to be formed within this structure, within this area. And then in the blue interpretation, I would probably still prefer to have an extension of the wave 3 in this area. And in that case, I would be watching out here for an updated area of support at the levels between the $12.4 all the way down to the $9.4 level. So in my opinion, those are the relevant areas of support for their respective scenarios. I would prefer if they weren't overlapping this much, but realistically, there is not much we can do about that. And right now, yeah, I am focusing at the moment still on the white scenario. We seem to be hovering just above the area of support, although based on the structure that has formed so far to the downside, I wouldn't be surprised that we already get a more significant retracement, although, yeah, I would probably expect still further continuation into this area of support. And honestly, if we don't even touch it, if we don't even get to this area of support, we will probably need to consider some sort of a different extension. Now, what I want to watch here for resistance, for a signal that this structure to the downside, or yeah, that this movement, this larger correction is not going to extend, or yeah, that this movement to the upside would be expected to extend, would be here a break above the $14.2 level. So we have the resistance levels between the $13.4 all the way up to the 78.6% retracement, where if we break the 78.6% retracement, I would expect to see a continuation higher with increased probabilities. It is not guaranteed, of course. In such patterns, we can even get overshoots where realistically we should be prepared for still continuation lower, but within the white interpretation especially, we would likely want to still see in this area a 5-wave move to the upside. I am not necessarily identifying an internal diagonal structure within this third wave to the upside within the 5th wave of the wave 3 that would necessarily allow such a 3-wave move to the upside to be part of the larger uptrend, and I would probably consider it a larger overshoot. And for now, all else that can be really tracked in this area is this ABC structure. Yeah, we can also have this on the chart, but it's again, this area of resistance is the relevant area for this wave B especially. And for now, these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.